Alright, we've known for a while now that Jurassic World Evolution 3 is the new Frontier CMS game coming out in 2025, specifically October 21st. We know that in total, Evolution 3 will have a total of 82 species. This total of 82 is 40 species less than what Jurassic World Evolution 2 ended with, which was 122 species. We also know that the new roster in Jurassic World Evolution 3 will be a combination of community favorites, icons of the Jurassic franchise, and new species. Since we see that there will be new species in Jurassic World Evolution 3, this means that there will probably be more than 40 species removed from Jurassic World Evolution 2 to make room for new additions. So we could be looking at maybe 50 species removed from Jurassic World Evolution 2 to make room for like 10-ish new species in the next game. I know this has a lot of people upset and frustrated, but we're not really here to talk about that. We're more here to talk about the potential of this. In this video, we will be covering the top 10 species from Jurassic World Evolution 2 that I feel should be brought back into Jurassic World Evolution 3. To add a bit more clarification, the species we will be talking about mostly fall into the community favorites category, not the icons of the Jurassic franchise, as any species from the films or like the TV shows will most likely return regardless. We're choosing species that are not super obvious that they will return. And finally, to add even more clarity, let's go over all the 27 species that we already know will be included in Jurassic World Evolution 3 so far. These names have either been seen through trailers, scenery like statues, or smaller Easter eggs hinting at a species inclusion. These are the confirmed 27 species returning from Jurassic World Evolution 2, either in the base game or through the deluxe upgrade pack. Allosaurus, Baryonyx, Gallimimus, Brachiosaurus, Carnotaurus, Dilophosaurus, Geosternbergia, Indominus Rex, Mosasaurus, Pteranodon, Parasaurolophus, Quetzalcoatlus, Spinosaurus, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, T-Rex, Velociraptor, Ankylosaurus, Megalodon, Dunkleosteus, Apatosaurus, Attenborosaurus, Sungoripteryx, and Concavinator and Thanatostrachum, which those last two are coming in the deluxe upgrade pack, not in the base game. Now, with that out of the way, let us get on with the list. Alright, number 10, Amargasaurus. So this is one that was introduced straight off the bat in Jurassic World Evolution 2. It was not in the first game, and it was immediately put into the base game of Jurassic World Evolution 2 back in, 2021, I guess? And this was one that I think got a lot of eye rolls from people in general from like the new base game roster, because a lot of people looked more towards like the new features and stuff of the actual game itself over just some of the new species that were kind of looked over. And this was one that I honestly think really adds a lot of potential, and I think it is pretty useful when you look at the grand scheme of things, especially in herbivores in Jurassic World Evolution 2. You have a lot of like different categories, a lot of big categories with herbivores. You have the sauropods, you have ceratopsians, you have ornithomimids, you have hadrosaurs, a bunch of those main groups that you have the very icons for, but the Amargasaurus kind of fits in between one of those medium-sized species and sauropods, because it is a sauropod, but it is a lot smaller, and it almost fits into those kinds of herds of like nice little natural like ceratopsians and ankylosaurs. So it's a very unique one among herbivores. I wouldn't say that I use it often. I actually don't think I've ever used it, but I do think that it is pretty useful for variety, and it is a nice buffer, I guess, from the other sauropods who are often very similar in like size and shape. Alright, number 9, Nothosaurus, or Nothosaurus, appearing in the Camp Cretaceous Season 5, I believe. So this was introduced in Jurassic World Evolution 2 in the Marine expansion pack, and this was one that a lot of people were generally excited about. I think more people were excited about other species in that pack, but it didn't take away from the excitement for this one, because Nothosaurus was, again, from Camp Cretaceous, so it has that kind of build up towards it, like it's a worthiness of the inclusion, and it also came with some pretty unique skins and a pretty interesting model. It is one of the few species in Jurassic World Evolution 2 that can use that rock enrichment that was introduced with that pack. But anyway, Nothosaurus was the one who introduced this, so I feel like it should be at least maybe included, or as a counterpoint or a countermeasure, it could be included in a Camp Cretaceous DLC for Jurassic World Evolution 3. But yeah, the Nothosaurus, honestly, I think it's pretty good, and it's very unique, honestly, compared to other species of the Laguna. I get that applies to some other ones, like the Archelon, which we'll talk about a bit later, but I think it just separates itself. It's almost like kind of like a salamander, I guess. And also with the babies, I think it could potentially be a pretty good one for babies. Alright, number 8, Tarbosaurus. So this is a bit of a controversial one, because in the Evolution 2 right now, it is kind of touch and go with people and like how they use it, because it does not have a regular skin. It only has the Camp Cretaceous skin, which is basically a T-Rex with larger eyebrows and spikes running across its back, which is not the most detailed design, I admit, but if they bring it back and they do give it its own unique model for like a base, and then you can use the variant of the Game Cretaceous skin, that would be really good. And I do hope they do that extra measure, and I hope they listen to the feedback, because that was like the only feedback from the Predator pack in Jurassic World Evolution 2, is that all the other species were amazing and perfect. It was just that the Tarbosaurus is good, but people were expecting another skin that would pay tribute to like how it looks more in real life, or at least give it its own unique look compared to just a T-Rex with spikes. Regardless, it is pretty highly praised for the Predator pack, and the Predator pack is pretty highly praised in general. So I feel like when they're looking at community favorites, they're going to look at the packs that were the most successful. Another thing I probably should mention is that the Tarbosaurus was one that was waited for a very long time in Jurassic World Evolution 2. So I feel like even though they could be mean and save this one for later, I do think that this could possibly be one that makes it into the base game, just because of how people were trying to be patient back then. I don't really think people want to be patient again for this one as well. Alright, Styxosaurus. Very underrated species in the lagoons. I have not seen as much talk about this one a lot. Probably one of the best Elasmosaur models in the game. Elasmosaurus itself looks kind of freaky, so I don't know if they would, if they did bring Elasmosaurus back as its own kind of thing, I wonder if they would redo the model, and if they wouldn't, I wonder if they would take a shortcut and say, okay, well, this one's also pretty popular and people did appreciate the model and it looks a lot better. So they would just say, okay, let's just put this one instead of Elasmosaurus. And I honestly think that maybe it could be something they would do. The only downside to that is you're not having Elasmosaurus, a well-recognized plesiosaur, in the base game. I don't know how much that would mean to people though. Another thing that, first of all, this thing was very highly praised in the pack it came in. I think it was the late Cretaceous pack. But first of all, the bioluminescent skins are amazing. I don't know if they would be brought over if it was brought over from Jurassic World Evolution 2. I would hope so. But I do hope that this at least returns for the Styxosaurus, because it is such a cool part of this animal. Obviously, it's not realistic in any way, but it is just a really cool feature of it that they added, very much creativity, to give it a pop, and I really do think that it would be pretty cool if they continue that on. Alright, number 6, Archelon. Definitely one of the most unique lagoon species, and definitely one of the most usable lagoon species. Again, this was another one that was introduced with the rock enrichment, and this one was probably even more used for that reason than the Nothosaurus, because Archelon is just a very famous species, and I honestly think that this one will show up again. I think this is probably the most confident I am in one of the species on this list to show up again, because even though the Archelon was not introduced until like way later in support for Jurassic World Evolution 2, it is one of those really classic icons of at least lagoon species that I feel like you can't really wait on its inclusion again. I feel like if you're gonna make like a lagoon roster for Jurassic World Evolution 3, you have to have those big heavy hitters like the Mosasaur, and I think honestly players are probably expecting some different like variety in terms of like actual scale and shape in the lagoons. In the base game for Jurassic World Evolution 2, you had a lot of the same figured kind of things. You had Mosasaurus, you had Tylosaurus. Shortly after, you had Chronosaurus. A lot of the species were very similar, but now looking at the roster, at the end roster of Jurassic World Evolution 2, you have Shonosaurus, you have Archelon, you have Dunkleosteus, which is cool on its own, like a huge fish. So you have that very different styles between the lagoon species, and I think that the Archelon would really add to that variety. So I think this one will be joining Dunkleosteus in the base game. Number 5, Shonosaurus. Again, we were just talking about the lagoon species, and I'm going to continue to talk about lagoon species. This was as well introduced in the marine species pack. The skins on this thing, first of all, the patterns are absolutely beautiful. The colors, they are the most perfect skins and colors and vibrance that you can have for at least not even just a lagoon species, but just in general for one of the amazing species in the game. Shonosaurus has amazing skins. You have like a galaxy skin, you have light blues and whites, and just this kind of shiny texture that just adds so much to the actual design, and it looks really good. And again, highly well received from the marine species pack, and I get that it might be weird if they add like all the species from that pack, but honestly I don't care, and I feel like that's honestly probably a good move. Maybe they could keep one of them back to sell a pack, but honestly I don't really see it, especially because the Archelon has already headlined a pack. It was like the icon for that pack and the pack art. Shonosaurus wasn't, but then again, it's not a species that really is too famous. Overall, beautiful species, and it would be a really big shame if it did not return in the next game. Alright, number 4, Utahraptor. Highly well received in the Predator pack. Beautiful species, a lot of people do praise it from the Predator pack. It is probably one of their favorites. very famous. A lot of people wanted it in Evolution 2 before it was added. It was probably one of the species that was first being requested for in like the base game of Jurassic World Evolution 2, or just shortly after that. You see like these iconic species of Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus and all these different kinds of like small predators, and you don't have the Utahraptor, which is a bit larger, which would bring honestly to my next point, is that the size variation. You have Velociraptor, you have Deinonychus, you have Monolophosaurus, not a raptor, but still. You have a bunch of these smaller species of like raptor or small predators that adding a larger one might excuse it being in the base game, because it would give a lot of size variation, very similar to the Amargasaurus being different from sauropods because it's a lot smaller. Utahraptor would differentiate itself from the other raptors because of it being so much bigger. Overall, very well accepted from the game for Jurassic World Evolution 2, and I could really like to see it in Evolution 3. Number 3, Yutyrannus, one of my favorite species of the game in Jurassic World Evolution 2. One of the best medium-sized hunters, alongside Concavenator, who we already know is coming back, obviously in Deluxe, so it would be really cool if the other one would also come back, and especially because this is not only very well received from when it was added in Jurassic World Evolution 2, but it is very well requested right now. And for Evolution 3, I've seen multiple posts on Twitter or in comments of the YouTube channels or the YouTube trailers or whatever for Evolution 3. Where is Yutyrannus? Where is it? Because it is probably one of the most requested species from like the feathered pack to return, because it is just that good. I don't know if they would save it for a DLC, but then again, I feel like I don't know if it's really that worth it, and it's more of a bargain because you have to get, even if you're cutting down 50 species from the roster, then you have to include animals in the base game that would make people want to buy the game. So overall, Yutyrannus is a beautiful model, but one of the best feathered species, just one of the better species in general for Evolution 2, and I would love to see it as well. Alright, number 2, Australopithecus. First of all, representative for Australia, which you don't have a lot of representation for Australia in general. I think Australopithecus probably represents the best in terms of like Australia, if there only is like a spot or two. Depends on how many spots are really up for grabs. I feel like Australopithecus probably represents this area best because it is the most interesting to look at and the most designed. It is a beautiful model. It is not one of like the ones that people talk about as often as like the Concavenator or Yutyrannus, but it is still very good and unique. The kill animations and the animations in general for this one are absolutely amazing, and I don't think it could be copied off other ones, but I don't think that this guy has clones in the game that copy its animations. It is probably some of the, not only the most longest animation, but some of the most like detailed animations, especially if you like see like its animation of killing a Dracorex or like a small herbivore. It's absolutely amazing. Not just because it's like brutal or anything, but just because of the way it moves around and it like dances with it and like runs around and stuff. It's just so in-depth and it's so cool to see that, just kind of like witness it. It's amazing. And I think that really sets it apart from the other raptor species, and I think not only its size, but the animations really do something else. So yeah, beautiful model, beautiful skins, maybe not the most well-known skins, but still beautiful model, beautiful animations, and it is another one of those larger raptors or larger species that kind of differ between medium carnivores and smaller carnivores that could maybe make its excuse for making it into the game. Alright, number 1. Dinosaurs. A lot of people favorites from the feathered pack right off the bat. This is probably the most favorited species, at least from the feathered pack and maybe even the game in general. The feathers and the patterns on it, beautiful. And Dinosaurs, honestly, at the time it was included, was such a well-known species in like media. You had Prehistoric Planet in 2021, I think, and that put the Dinosaurs in a really nice spot because it looked absolutely beautiful in the show. I think that honestly it still is a pretty relevant species, and that model for it looks absolutely amazing, and the patterns for it are beautiful, and a lot of players have really grown to enjoy its species, and I really do hope that that's included, because that is one of the community favorites that I think that would perfectly suit that community favorites category that they described in the description of what they are bringing back. I think that is probably the best example of a favorite from the community that would bring a lot of people back. So I think it brings a lot of variety and potential for like habitat building, and also just absolutely beautiful model, and it's just a fan favorite among many. And there you go, that is the list. I don't know if this was that long of a video, but that is my top 10 species I would love to see return from Jurassic World Evolution 2 into Jurassic World Evolution 3. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the subscribe button. We will be making more stuff for Jurassic World Evolution 3, probably speculation stuff, because that is personally fun for myself. That's going to be it for me. I hope you all enjoyed. Again, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more Evolution 3 stuff. I'm very excited to play it in October when it releases, because it is honestly, I don't know, at the beginning it was like, I don't know if this is really worthy of another like big purchase or whatever, but I think it is probably going to gain more interest from me over the summer because we're going to get a lot more new looks at it. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys, have a great rest of your day.